joined to another Creators Live interview session, which means that we'll be discussing together how you can monetize your skills and expertise. I'm Sona from Uteach, and I'm very excited to be joined today by Angel Rodriguez, who is a creator at Uteach, who is also the trainer and the founder of Alliance Training and Testing. Welcome, Angel, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Sona. I really appreciate the offer. Very honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And today we are going to be focused on a very special topic, which is creating the training and selling your training. So make sure you stick to the end to hear all the insights from Angel. And we'll hear Angel share about his experience a little bit. And speaking about experience, I know that you have your background in the military, and I know you have a vast experience in the military. So I was wondering, how did the idea of creating the course based on your experience came from? How did you decide to switch between careers? I don't know if it's considered a switch, but anyways, how did you decide to put your experience and put your knowledge and share your knowledge in that way?
Well, I can tell you it applied really well in my particular case. A lot of the things I learned in the military applied to the security sector. So a lot of those things transferred very easily. I really enjoy this field. I enjoy meeting new people, and that's great if you're a people person, if you enjoy being out there. However, I'm kind of the opposite when it comes to being on camera. This is the second time I've been on camera in 13 years. So I just wanted you to know how much I do appreciate Uteach because this is not something that I do. And you'll learn as we're going through the course creation tools that we'll be talking about.
Oh, thank you for doing that with us. Thank you for joining our interview. So, where did the idea came from to share your also experience in a course way, in a training way?
It really came out of necessity in the very beginning. I was working for a company, and two of my mentors at that time were really not happy with the training provider they were sending their folks to. They encouraged me to start the business, and back in 2012, I started training in-person classes. It was not allowed in my sector until COVID hit. That's when the industry really did pivot. And as a
Yeah.
result, I kind of pivoted along. And I was one of the first, I was actually the first in the state of Tennessee to offer online training across the state. I used several different tools. Later on, I was so fortunate to be partnered with Uteach and found y'all. Y'all have been so good to me. And I'm not just saying that for this podcast. For y'all that are out there that are looking to create course creation, Uteach, I've used other ones. I won't mention them by name on this podcast, but I've used all of those. I can tell you I've used at least 5 of them. And I can tell you that Uteach is by far my favorite.
Thank you, Angel. We're happy to help you in any way to help you promote your business and training. And I was going to ask, when you first started your training business and when you started to regard it from a business perspective, were there any like challenges at the beginning?
Lots of them.
Yeah.
There's lots of them. Especially creating online courses. There was a big challenge there. I'm used to teaching in 1 hour blocks, okay, in a classroom. That works in a classroom just fine. When I first launched my online course, I did it the same way, 1 hour blocks, and that was a huge mistake. I had big drop offs. So that's one of the biggest things I learned in the very beginning for creating online courses is you got to structure it into little bite-sized nuggets that people can take, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 12 at the max, but really not no further than that. You're going to lose people's attention after that point. And that's another thing that Uteach does is involve you in engagement. You can provide those progress quizzes along the way, and that really does go a long way for engagement.
Yeah. So when you start, like, think of creating that training course, because when you do that face to face, it's totally different. But when your learners are on the other part of the world and joining you from anywhere, and that is a total different experience. So when you're about to create a training course, all that people start to think about is right from the content. They start from the content and speak about the modules and everything. However, I was going to ask about also the experience. When you think about the overall experience you want to provide during your training. So, are there any foundational questions that you have to think about before immersing yourself into the content creation part?
Yes, ma'am. And I think that's a great point. Starting at the very beginning, I did have the luxury of already having an established brand for 10 years and having taught in person classes. So I had content and I had some expertise. And I think those three things, if you have a passion for doing something, that you have some expertise that you can bring to the table and share with other folks, there's no better platform than Uteach for doing it and online. But you really got to do the research and really be an expert in your field.
Before like immersing yourself into the content creation part, before like if you have to think that which models I'm going to include, etc., and etc., are there any questions that help you decide what are you going to include in the experience of the training overall?
Absolutely. I think for me, a big part of it in the very beginning is I wanted to keep the cost low. I think everyone wants to do that. You also want to be very nimble. In my particular case, all of my courses are based on state laws, which can change and fluctuate as things happen. So a big thing for me, I really like the Google Workspace tools. I think it's worth your investment to get that. I think all the tools that it provides with Google Meet, you can do in-person training that way if that's what you like to do. I think the blogger feature that they offer is another nice feature, which that's one of the biggest things for me that brought me to Uteach was the ability to blog right there on the site. That is a huge difference maker. A lot of the other platforms don't offer that at all. And the social aspect is the way that you bring your customers into your particular online course that you're trying to create.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
exactly. Yeah, because also it's all about nurturing your audience before they can trust you and before they can buy your training, buy your course. It is also about establishing trust right at the beginning. But also, one key thing about training and courses is not only about the content part and the information part, because you can find information on Google like for free. But the courses are not about the information. They are about like the experience, the engagement, the interaction with the trainer, and the experience and knowledge that the trainer himself or herself puts into the course. So I was wondering if you use any engagement or interactive techniques in your trainings in order for your learners to be always on the track.
Well, I do. Along the way, they do take the progress quizzes within Uteach, and I'm able to see the percentage and how they're progressing through the course when they last logged in. All these things are very helpful from my perspective as an instructor. I always like to look at tools too for engagement after the fact. One of the things I do like about Google Workspace is to the ability to use the canned responses for some of the common things that I communicate very at the end of the course, at the beginning of the course. It's very nice to send those out. I use a Pably for a lot of those automations to create those communications and stay engaged with the students as well.
Yeah. And what is your approach to create quizzes? Because quizzes like can be created in order to somewhat challenge the learners, and others can be created just to retain the information. So, what is the goal of your quizzes? What is your way to incorporate them in your training?
Well, the way I do is we're trying to reinforce the answers that we want them to remember to the state laws. We want them to know that their licenses are going to expire in 2 years. We want them to remember that because 2 years from now, we want them to come back and be a customer again, too. So we train that along the way. We actually use regular engagement throughout the course. And at the very end of the course, we do a final examination, and that's usually a culmination of all of those progress quizzes that we did along the way. So it reinforces it 3 times, is what I like to say. You told them once, you quizzed them on it once, and then you gave them a final exam. Now they really know it. That's kind of the way I approach things.
Yeah. So you include quizzes between the modules, or is it just like a final exam quiz?
I do both. I do
Yeah.
progress quizzes that they're required to pass along the way, so I know that they've grasped the subject. And then I also have a final exam at the very end, which is a culmination of those questions.
Okay, so when it comes to progress quizzes, are there any best practices that you would like to share with us when it comes to like developing the questions? And also, if it's a multiple choice quiz, you also have to be very careful with the options you provide. So, are there any tips or best practices that you would like to share?
One of the things I've discovered, I had this one presentation. I thought it was great. It was perfect, and then I let Grammarly get a hold of it. It really tore it up pretty good. Is all I can say. That's one of the tools that I like for final editing now. Before I put something out there, I like to have Grammarly take a look at it, make sure it's got the right tone. That's one of the things I enjoy about that as well. I'm still old school when it comes to the creation aspect. I like to use PowerPoint. That's what I used as an instructor all the way through. And one of the great things I like about PowerPoint is the ability to export the things as videos, and you can integrate voiceovers, transitions, things along the way that you can really control to a granular level. And I really still enjoy using PowerPoint. It's one of the oldest ones out there.
Yeah. All but good. Also, when it comes to like thinking about the questions that you want to include, I was wondering how like you devise the questions. Maybe it's like comes from your learning objectives that you put for the course, or do you like devise the main points that you want them to remember and make your questions about those points? So, what is your approach of developing the questions and options also?
Well, I like to have two options that are very close. All right. If the answer is one and it should have been two, I want to give them the answer of 1, 2, 10, and 20. That way we can throw two of them out right away. But now these other two tell me if they really learned the subject. I think that's one of the things you can do with the multiple choice questions is not make it really glaringly obvious which is the right answer. True and false questions are great for just quick check-ins. I think whenever you have the scale questions as well, you can use that. I like to use the scale type questions when we're talking about the end as far as the satisfaction scores of the course.
Yeah. Also, about designing the module parts, actual module parts, when you already are the subject matter of your course, you want to include lots of information in there, lots of resources in there. And now the time comes when you need to like put them into the modules. And it is, I believe, when things become more intricate and difficult. I was wondering, how do you decide on the format of your modules? I know like video is one of the most popular ones that you can use to record a course, etc. What is in your case some of other formats for developing the modules?
Well, I think another tool I've played around with is called Snagit. That's where you can grab screen recordings so you can walk people through a particular process. That's one of the ones I like to use it. And it's another low cost one that you can use. Loom is another great product where you can do like we're doing now and record on screen and do the little bubble head and things like that onto your presentation, which is nice. It makes it look professional. That's the main thing though, is any tool that you're using, it has to be informative content, it has to be engaging content, and it has to be well structured like you're getting to. Laying that out in a logical format is very, very important for both the instructor and for the learner. Making sure that they're not bouncing from topic to topic, that there's a logical sequence in the way that they're learning. I think that's very important as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And how can you like make sure that the lessons are flowing in logical order? Maybe for some training you have to like the build next module on the previous module. So how can you like design and develop all the ideas into a well-structured training?
I learned that right out of the gate. Like I said, I had 1 hour blocks and that did not go over at all. And I relaunched, I did another relaunch and I got some feedback from that relaunch, and that's another thing you should always do is check in with your students, see how they are enjoying the course. One of the difference makers with Uteach, and I know I keep saying that, so I apologize, but one of the biggest differences with Uteach is they offer that app experience as well. That's another difference that you're not going to see. The customized app, come on, that is really something to support your students to make sure that they are successful in their journey. And that's ultimately what you really want out of any of this.
Yeah, you spoke about the mobile app experience, and I think that is really a nice choice to have your training also available on mobile. Why? Because you want it to be effective, and for it to be effective, it also has to be accessible for the learners. And that's why, with the rise of mobile learning, you do not want to miss a chance to get on the mobile as well. So, as we came to this topic, is there any way that we can make sure that our training works on mobile as well? Because on mobile you have small size screen and other like necessities that you have to adapt your content to mobile as well. So, are there any key considerations when you need to like also adapt your training to mobile learners?
Well, that's where Uteach shines again. We really when you deploy. I've been deploying on Uteach with 180K videos, and they automatically put it on there in a very high quality way where you can look at it and it presents mobile responsive on any screen. And that's very important. Most of my users, for instance, I would say upwards of 80%, actually complete my entire 4 hour courses on a mobile device. So it's very important for me it's a good experience for them on that mobile device. And I think the app goes a long way in supporting that. But even without the app, it's still important that it's mobile responsive and people can view it on different devices.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And I've actually came across the statistics that said that 70% of employees who are going for a training, they prefer to for the training to be on mobile app as well. So I was thinking, what can you consider during the content development part, during the module development part, for it also to be like mobile responsive in the application?
Absolutely, and that's where when we're creating the videos, I actually deploy the videos right on the Uteach site. Upload them to the site, but I also use some of the promotional type videos that I create on YouTube and Vimeo and places like this that I can embed on my site. And that's a big difference maker in Uteach, and the fact that you can reinforce as a for instance, I have a introduction video that I have as part of my course. Well, that introduction video is at the top of every page so they can get right out of the gate. These are the expectations, and this is how we're going to help you. So it really works both ways, both in advertising and both in the course creation process. It's really great.
Yeah. But with mobile learning, I feel it is also a little bit challenging for the trainers because mobile learning is also a little bit distracting because you get busy in life and you receive, like, I don't know, another notification and you get lost in your mobile app, especially that we are so glued to our mobile apps. And so I was wondering if you have any ways to keep learners on track and to bring them back into the learning, any like motivational things that you use, any engagement things that you use to bring them back into the learning?
Absolutely. We along the way they have the progress quizzes, so I'll know where they're at. And if after the classes where we want to make sure, because most of the folks that I train are motivated to complete the course because at the end of the course they're going to receive a license that allows them to be employed. So in my particular case, they have the quicker they can get that done, the quicker they can get to working legally. And those tools that we're using to get that content out there in an easily digestible manner, that's the way that you want to go. That's the way that people live nowadays. They're constantly on social media. They're constantly watching different types of television, radio, but you're seeing that really that handheld device is where a lot of people are spending quite a bit of their time. And as a result, we got to fit our time into that device as well. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Certification can really be a real good motivation to keep the course going. I was wondering, when it comes to like evaluating on how did the training or how did your training go? Like, if you evaluate the performance of your training for you as a trainer, as a creator of your course, are there any like key metrics that you take into consideration to decide where you should improve maybe, or which parts should you make adjustments in?
I tell you, my best way of doing that over those 12 years where I was an instructor, I've made a lot of relationships. And basically, I'd ask one of those folks, hey, go take a look at this and these are the folks that will give me some brutally honest feedback. These are folks that'll tell me, hey, you got to do this and you got to do that. And as a result, I've actually relaunched that course. This will be my third relaunch now. We've done different things with the voices. We've done different things with the imagery. We've done different things with the transitions. And you listen to all that feedback. And that's another reason that I like PowerPoint. I can quickly make those adjustments and repost. And now we're improving all the time. Continual improvement is another thing that you really got to look at as a course creator, because if you're not continually improving your services and your products, it's really not gonna it's gonna get stale. That's what's gonna end up happening.
Yeah, feedback is really, really important. And did you think about the feedback of your colleagues? Were you mentioning your colleagues, or was it your learners that you were receiving the feedback from?
I call those golden nuggets. That's what I call those, and I tell that to my in-person students as well. Uh, the 5-star reviews, the niceties. I want to hear, how can I get better for the next course? How can I get better for the next class? And it's the same concept here. I'm asking them to really look at it, look for minutia mistakes. That's the things I call those golden nuggets. It's when you look at something and you read it for 10 times, okay? In your mind, you're saying that, but another person, when you hand them that same paper, hey, Angel, that's not what you're saying over here.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen a lot of times. So
Because when you were developing the content, you put too much work into that, and you don't really get. You need like another eye to look at it and see if there are any gaps that you need to be filled out. So I was wondering if you solely use oral feedback, or maybe you devise any, like, I don't know, surveys to send them.
it's hard to. I do that for my in-person classes. I do a survey right at the end of the class for a lot of those. For the online courses, I really want to get them the information they need to complete the process, because there is a process that they have to do in my particular case to get their license afterwards. That's what I really focus on, is the steps that they need to do to be successful. That's my focus.
Yeah. And about like incorporating this feedback in your course, I was wondering how like how do you incorporate what you have already gathered in your course and make the adjustments?
Well, once I've gathered that feedback, again, that's the thing that I really love about PowerPoint, is I can go make those adjustments. I can fine tune those things, and then I can repost the course. And that's where Uteach shines again. I can keep the same quiz that I had before. There's nothing wrong with the quiz. All I'm doing is replacing the video now, and that's a very quick, easy thing that we can do on the platform. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. Feedback can really be a great thing in order to evaluate if your training was effective or not. Do you maybe use any other methods or techniques in order to understand if your training was effective after all?
Well, I look at the grades as well. The grades and the examinations, that tells a big thing about how you're doing as well. In the very beginning, when I was doing the 1 hour blocks, the grades were very, very low, and the dropout rates were very, very high. Once we shortened the modules and had it to where it was in bite-sized nuggets and a lot more digestible, then we seen the grades start to rise. And now that we're starting to make all those improvements and we see those grades continue to rise, that's when you know you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, attention spans have got lower and lower, and I think that you mentioned that we need to create like a bite-sized content. It is really important. And I was going to ask what can be the ideal length for you in a module, because I know a lot of folks, when they begin to like develop their courses, the first thing that comes to their mind is about the length of their module. For example, if it's a video course, if it's another format, what is your like aim, that you don't aim to like pass that limit
Well,
and
for
keep it
me,
bite sized?
yeah, I'm sorry. For me, I really look at two things when it involves that. Uh, my courses refer to state law quite a bit, and they'll rattle off this big long number that nobody needs to remember. And it really is a big interruption during the course, is one of the pieces of feedback that I received. Now, I have it posted up there on the video for them to see, but now I don't have the voiceover saying the actual number, and it makes it read more like a podcast versus an instructional video or you reading a book, which is a lot better. So when you have it, I would like to say there's two things that come into this. The listenability. If I can listen for a long time and it's enjoyable to listen to, that's a factor that plays into it as well. So if it's listenable, it's what I like to say, and you can listen to it enjoyably for a long time, great. If my favorite song I can listen to for 5 minutes, but some of those songs I'm going to plug my ears after about 10 seconds. So it's kind of goes along with the topic as well. Some of the topics you want to keep bite-sized and crisp, so that you want to reinforce what you're trying to get across in that particular module. I think that's another thing that you look at as well. In my particular case, I have a one course that is actually going over a very long portion that you really can't interrupt or split up into pieces, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. That one is the longest one I got, is about 12 minutes long. And I think that's about as far as you want to go with people's attention span, because that's what you got to look at, those things. How long can I listen to this? Is it enjoyable? And if so, let's keep it under, 9 to 12 is my ballpark. That's what I like to look for. If you make them too short too, then it makes it to where, hey, I don't feel like I'm really learning anything along the way either. Okay.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned that sometimes you can like correct the material and develop it into more bite-sized content. So, what can we do in that case if there is really no way to like chop it into more manageable pieces, if it has to stay that way?
Make it enjoyable is the best way I can
Yeah.
say it. And that's what I did with the second part, taking out all those little numbers that they were saying along the way, referring to codes. Oh gosh, if you can take out some of that technical jargon and make it more human, the more you can do that, the more listenable it's going to be along the way, is what I believe.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we've discussed like some of the ways that you can make the training engaging and enjoyable. But really, when your audience haven't interacted with you yet and they don't know about your courses and the experience they will get, one of the most important things is to be able to market it in a way and to be able to like communicate the transformation of your course in a way that can build trust with the learners and get them buy the course. And I feel like lots of trainers and creators have some like challenges when it comes to the selling part. So I was wondering, what strategies do you use in order to communicate the value of your training and make it known to your audience how it is different from the other training that they can get?
Well, I think social media strategies are good for getting the word out there. Um, you really want to look at too is you can work too hard at that. There's tools you can use to help you get the word out. Canva, I'm a big fan of Canva. I use that quite a bit for the actual creation. Uh, Vista Social, for me, that's what I'm using to distribute across all my different platforms, where you can just hit the button once and it goes to all of them. Uh, that's I reuse a lot of content as well. That's going back to PowerPoint. A lot of those PowerPoint videos I create. I also create those introduction videos in a 4K format, which takes a long time, by the way. So be patient. But once you get it into a 4K type of format and you upload those to YouTube, which actually takes quite a bit of long time as well, once you do, those automatic chapters seem to pick up very, very quickly with PowerPoint versus different other videos that I've uploaded on there. So I think that's another secret advantage to using PowerPoint that you'll find as well. I reuse a lot of my voiceovers as well. I created a Spotify account where I'll use the Spotify voiceover and embed that into my blog, because some people don't like to read, they just like to listen. So I'll give them both options where they can listen along while they're reading a blog. So I'll reusing a lot of those things. I think that's the key to success, and using them in different ways that help your people or the folks that you're trying to reach really digest it as quickly as possible. Because usually, especially on social media, you maybe have a few milliseconds to grab someone's attention to get them to buy your course. So I think that's
Yeah.
important.
Repurposing your content is actually a great strategy, I think, because you want to make it as accessible as possible, and people's preferences differ. Some prefer to listen to it, some prefer to just read it. So you have to like have the same content in different formats and have them like make it more enjoyable for them, as you like to say. So, besides like the social media part, are there like any other channels that you use to like promote your training, to speak about your training and communicate the value of your training?
Well, I think there's a lot, in my particular case, there's a lot of different industry organizations that I'm a part of. Uh, uh, I, I'm a part of all of those organizations. I've had leadership roles in those organizations at different times. Now I'm kind of taking a little bit of a step back, but I'm still heavily involved in quite a those. I think you should get involved in your industry organizations. That's very important. I think just your friends and family. They're your folks that can help you sell as well. I know that sounds strange. I really hated doing that in the very beginning. I really hated tooting my own horn in the very beginning too. I couldn't. It sounded like bragging to me, and I know that sounds strange, but that's just my generation. It was hard for me to undo that in the very beginning. So going out there and not being shy about saying what your company's about, and how this course will benefit people, that you don't want to be shy about that. And that was a hard thing that I had to overcome in the very beginning.
Yeah, it's a great skill to learn on the way, I think.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you also collaborate with organizations and you have your connections and you have your network in there. So I was wondering what would be your advice to like beginner creators who also like to establish some partnerships with in the industry that you're working in.
I have a very simple philosophy: is you always have to deliver. If you make a promise, you deliver on that promise. If I tell my students I'm going to get their certificate to them within 24 hours, they're going to have it well within that time period, not 23. They're going to have it well before. They're going to be very satisfied. I think that's going above and beyond consistently. If you do that, you'll be successful. But at the same time, you don't want to overcommit and then under deliver. Hey, I'll get it to you in 1 hour. Well, that's not really acceptable in most conditions for a lot of folks. Okay. In my case, I have to grade everything before I'm able to send it off to the student. So one of the things that Uteach really does help with is the automatic certificate generation that it sends off. In my case, I have to take a look at it before it gets sent off. So it's very important to look at how your flow and your process is structured and where it fits.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to mention. And to kind of sum this whole experience of creating the training and developing it and selling it and marketing it, I was going to ask if you have any tips or a piece of advice for beginner creators who are thinking about starting their training business.
Listen to those golden nuggets. Don't take them as insults. Don't take those as it hurts your feelings. Take those as ways to improve. I always like to overcome some of the challenges that you're going to see as well as an online course creator versus an in person. Is people's feelings get hurt quite a bit online very quickly. You got to be careful how you word your things that you talk to people. Things can easily be misunderstood in an email that are not misunderstood in a conversation. So being careful about what you say and the tone that you use to say it. I'm a military guy, and a lot of times I'm very direct face to face, and people get that. They see the smile on my face. But if I were to say the words that just came out of my mouth and put it in an email, it might come across as insulting. So make sure you're watching your tone. I have to remind myself of that every single day, and I try to live up to it. Unfortunately, sometimes whatever you commit to, though, you have to live up on that promise. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, that is one of the essential steps in order to establish trust. I think it's a great point
Absolutely.
to mention. Yeah. Thank you, Angel, for sharing all those tips and insights, and thank you for sharing your experience with us. And I hope you enjoyed today's interview. And if you need any resources regarding developing your training and creating your training, you can find them in the description of this video. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. So we'll get back to you and answer and help you with that as well for Creators Live. And we'll see you in another interview.